It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Riverside today with Mike Soubirous, a member of the Riverside City Council. And I must say I was a little bit surprised by a recent vote of your council. As you know, the city of Riverside was the lead plaintiff a few years ago in a very significant lawsuit that argued that cities, as a matter of zoning, should be able to exclude medical marijuana dispensaries from their city limits. And the California Supreme Court agreed. But now, as a result of legislation from the California legislature, the cities need to make a decision about cultivation.
Yes.
So what did the council decide as it relates to cultivation?
Well, we agreed on a specific number of plants, both indoor and outdoor, to be able to grow and set a limit on that, and also put in place some, some safeguards for some residents as far as odors and like outdoor lighting at nighttime and things like that.
So you are allowing personal cultivation?
Yes. And no commercial sales.
Right. Again, I'm surprised, only because Riverside was so firm about precluding medical marijuana dispensaries. What happened? Is it a new council? Is it a recognition that times are changing? Are you looking towards November, potential legalization?
Yeah, probably a combination of a lot of things. And some is I believe that the council wanted to show some sensitivity for those patients that felt that they needed to grow this. And if they grew it on their own, in their own home, not infringing on anybody else. That, it wouldn't be like these commercial sales where, a line of 18-year-olds are riding up and buying marijuana.
But, one could argue we don't all have green thumbs. And so are you being compassionate by not letting them buy it from someone who does have a green thumb?
Well, the residents seem like they're overwhelmingly opposed, and especially with that vote that we had, that Measure A, where they did not want. Yes, and Measure A was something that the city brought forward to the voters as to, actually somebody brought it to the city of Riverside to, see about changing our current rule for not having dispensaries. And the voters voted it down almost about 60-some%.
I have to say, a few years back, my wife and I were looking to buy a new home. And we ultimately did buy this home. And when we were looking at this particular home that we ultimately acquired, there's a small deck outside of our bedroom. And we could see the neighbor's yard. And I look, and I could decipher 2 marijuana plants. And I turned to the realtor and I said, what in God's name is that? And he said, those are marijuana plants. And I thought to myself, do I want to live next to someone who's growing marijuana plants? He told me that he had a license to grow 2. Well, it's a new day. They wound up moving out anyway, but it's interesting how, this never would have happened, I don't know, when we were growing up.
Absolutely. And, things have changed. And if California, I believe there's going to be about 16 bills if they qualify to push for making recreational marijuana. And if they do, then people are going to be able to use it pretty much with the same restrictions I would guess that cigarettes have as far as infringing on others.
I have to ask you about legalization, and I ask you for 2 reasons. One, you were a cop. You were a highway patrolman, and you're on the Riverside City Council. So you got all those forces coming together. What do you make of legalization? I think it's going to happen. I just look at the polls. It seems pretty clear that Californians are ready for it. Only one state recently has declined to legalize marijuana by vote. That was Ohio. But it failed out of a view that commercial growers were too in bed with the initiative writers. So what do you make of it?
Well, if you look back into the 20s and 30s, the 1920s and 30s.
No, that's fair.
You had a society that the government didn't regulate a lot of the drug use, and you had a lot of people that were very stoned and, pretty much couldn't work, and there was a lot of issues, and they said, we've got to clean this up. Well, as time goes on, I think maybe people don't realize the full extent of where society can go with this, and it'll start encouraging a lot of use that maybe, isn't good for society. Don't know.
But is it, though? Look, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but alcohol consumption, that wreaks havoc on your body.
And drunk driving crashes.
And look, when people get stoned, they usually eat and fall asleep. They're not driving around. And did you see people stoned when you were a CHP?
Not as many as the DUI drivers under the influence of alcohol.
And so I'm wondering, is it a better vice? I don't know if you can compare those two, but...
Well, one thing I have seen is a lot of the people, and there's people out there that'll disagree with me, but I've seen it where, people that are taking other drugs above and beyond cocaine, other things, and you ask them, what did you start with? And they'll overwhelmingly tell you it was
gateway.
marijuana. Yeah.
But I wonder.
But people deny that.
But if marijuana is legal, does it lose its gateway status?
True.
Because alcohol is alcohol a gateway.
Right. Right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's as much of a gateway as marijuana has been.
Right.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I'm not sure if we can decipher this now, but let us say that marijuana is legalized. Will that California Supreme Court case that Riverside won apply? So can you, as a city, exclude entirely marijuana sales in your limits?
From what we understand, as of this point, yes, because it's a permitting issue.
But could you exclude alcohol?
Theoretically, we could.
You could. So
yes,
I
you could
guess,
say we want to limit how many liquor stores, things like that.
But limit's one thing. What about 100% prohibition?
Well, there's a lot of counties in other states that do, and I'd have to check with the state law on that specifically, but look at these dry counties. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but where Jack Daniels is sold supposedly is a dry county.
Really?
Yeah, in Tennessee.
So I wonder what's going to happen. I want to shift gears, if I may, and talk to you about water, which is actually not that far off from our conversation with regard to marijuana.
Well, there are water pipes.
There are water pipes, clearly. And for better or for worse, sir, the Riverside Public Utilities, which is owned by the city, they operate electric and water.
Correct.
Huge surpluses.
Yes.
Huge surpluses. And so there's a lot of conversation about what should happen with those surpluses, sir.
Well, that's an interesting dynamic that we're going to have to address, and it's a long time in coming. We've been waiting to hear about this for about 9 to 12 months. And what's interesting to me is, we hear from Riverside Public Utilities that there are these restricted and non-restricted funds. We didn't hear about that until the funding, the numbers came in kind of high, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, we've got some restricted funds that we,
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
A lot of us read about the Los Angeles Public Utility.
Yes.
And,
Absolutely.
I mean, wait a second. The city owns the public utility. The LA City owns the LADWP. Riverside owns RPU.
Yes.
What is this like? Hide the ball. I don't. I mean, come on. You're the owner.
You're right where I am. It seems that there's this play that no matter what you ask and what you try to decipher out of this, it's just this vicious circle.
But wait a second. No. It's like I'm your parent.
Yeah.
Just tell me.
We run it and we own it. But
So
yet,
how are they able to engage? Again, I'm presuming facts, but let's just presume the transparency is not where it should be. Presuming that, how are they able to engage in these shenanigans?
That's exactly the right word for it, and I say that all the time. And to me, I've been trying to learn as much as I can about water, mostly water, because it's more of a mystery to some than electrical, because we're buying it off the grid, and it's pretty straightforward. But with water, it's just this dynamic that it's, the numbers seem to change, or what's talked about seems to change. But if you break it down, reserves are reserves, and what they're designed for is for emergencies.
Right, but why is it that they can decide what to do with their reserves? The city owns them.
Right.
Is it the city council needs to direct them?
I would say yes, and I think it's a lack of knowledge. It's a big animal to control as far as trying to find out all the facets of where the water is, how much water there is, what we're entitled to, what we draw from, where it goes after downstream. There's different rules for the other side of Prado.
I understand they're the experts on water, and you don't want to get the city council too much into their Kool-Aid, but at a certain point, it is just so very frustrating, just as a citizen reading articles.
Trying to decipher.
But even aside from trying to decipher, it's how, it's really again, I'm presuming facts, but the maltreatment of the utility to its owner, the city.
Yes.
Riverside, LA, whatever it may be.
The ratepayers, absolutely.
Okay, his name is Mike Soubirous. He is a member of the Riverside City Council. We're in the Inland Empire today. My name is Brad Pomerance on Charter Local Edition.